You are listening to On the Pond with your host, Adam Steer. How's it going, everyone? I want to welcome all of you to the first ever episode of On the Pond. I am Adam Steer, the host of this podcast. Now, for those of you who may or may not know, this is a hockey podcast where I talk all things hockey and discuss the hottest topics related to hockey and specifically the NHL. Now, before I dive into what is going to be discussed today, I want to give you all a quick introduction into who I am. My name is Adam Steer. I am from Toronto, Ontario, and I am a die-hard Maple Leafs fan. I have been since I was a little kid. Currently in my fourth year at Brock University in the sport management program. I'm a big fan of other sports such as football, basketball, and baseball, but hockey is hands down my favorite sport. Each week I will be discussing the hottest topics regarding the NHL and will be providing my analysis into what's going on. So let's jump right into it and discuss the most recent NHL trade. So the Toronto Maple Leafs have acquired defenseman Jake Muzzin from the LA Kings in exchange for forward prospect Carl Grundstrom, defense prospect Sean Durzi, and a 2019 first-round pick. So how I'm going to dissect this trade is I'm going to discuss a little bit about Jake Muzzin, going to talk about what the Leafs get in Jake Muzzin, the grade they get in this trade, why I think it's a good deal for them. Then I'll be moving over to LA and discussing who they got, why I think it's a good deal for them, and ultimately giving them a grade as well. So, first off, Maple Leafs acquired Jake Muzzin, defenseman, left shot from the LA Kings. Jake Muzzin, so far with the LA Kings this season, has played 50 games, recording 4 goals, 17 assists, 21 points. He's averaged 21 minutes and 32 seconds of time on ice, and he is 29 years old. So, what are the Maple Leafs getting in Jake Muzzin? They're getting a top 4 D-man who can log heavy and important minutes. Getting Jake Muzzin, in my opinion, gives them a grade of an A on this deal. Now, why do I think this is such a good deal for the Leafs? They finally get their defenseman, who we've talked about for so long. He can log huge minutes. Jake Muzzin's strongest attributes are his defensive ability and hockey IQ, which the Leafs have lacked for a long time on the back end. Now, for those who have questioned Jake Muzzin's offensive ability, because he is a great defender, he's put up 40 points various times on relatively low-scoring LA teams in the past. So that's pretty impressive in my opinion, being able to do that. LA is a team historically knowing for not scoring that many goals. Next, Jake Muzzin brings that Stanley Cup pedigree to the Toronto Maple Leafs as he won the Cup with LA in 2014. Jake Muzzin is an extremely durable player who is very reliable and can play a lot of games. Now, when I was looking at other guys that the Maple Leafs could acquire, such as Brett Pesce or Justin Falk, some of those guys haven't played as many games the last few years. They've gotten hurt. And I think it's great that the Leafs acquired Muzzin because I think he's one of the most durable defensemen that you could get out there at a trade. And he's just going to have huge impact on this team. Next, obviously it's a very team-friendly deal. For the next year and a half, he's only been making $4 million a year. I think that is very impressive for the Leafs to be able to put that in their cap, and I think it'll help them hopefully sign the likes of Matthews and Marner, saving some money, with Muzzin only making $4 million. Next, I think that acquiring Muzzin takes off the pressure of every other D-man, especially Hainsey, so he can slot down and play with Dermott on the third pair, playing 15, 16 minutes a night. Now, people forget Ron Hainsey when he was acquired by Pittsburgh in 2017 at the deadline. He was a guy that played with Brian Dumoulin and helped groom Brian Dumoulin into the defenseman he is today. So hoping, as a Leafs fan, that Hainsey can have a similar impact with Dermott and that Dermott can really improve his game playing with a veteran presence like Hainsey. Next, Toronto did not have to, 1, give up a roster player in this trade. That is huge. No Janssen, no Kapanen, no Nylander. That is fantastic. That is huge for this team. Secondly, they avoided giving up top prospects like Rasmus Sandin, Timothy Liljegren, and Trevor Moore. Huge for this team. They did not have to overpay, which I think is fantastic. So like I said, the Maple Leafs deserve an A grade. Next, the LA Kings have acquired Carl Grundstrom, Sean Durzi, and a 2019 first-round pick. I would give the LA Kings a B+ on this trade. So I'm going to discuss what LA has gotten and discuss why the deal is good for the Kings. Carl Grundstrom, in 42 games played this season with the Toronto Marlies, the Leafs farm team. Grundstrom, in 42 games played, recorded 13 goals, 16 assists, 29 points. He's 21 years old. I really like Grundstrom. He's a heavy player. He can play third line. I think he could potentially move up in the year top 6 depending on how he develops. I think it's kind of unfair to give him that third line kind of role when we haven't seen him play in the NHL in a top line role yet. So it'll be interesting to see. I will miss Grundstrom. I did not want to see him go, but you have to give a little in order to get. And this trade, I think, is worth it for the Leafs to be able to give up a guy like Grundstrom. He's not one of the top prospects, but he's a pretty good one, and we'll miss him. And I hope Carl the best of luck in LA. Next, the LA Kings have acquired defense prospect Sean Durzi. He plays for Guelph. He originally played for Owen Sound, but got traded at the deadline to the powerhouse Guelph Storm. Durzi, in 26 games played this year with Guelph and Owen Sound, recorded 8 goals, 20 assists, 28 points, and he is 20 years old. Now, being 20 years old as an overager is a little bit concerning because usually overagers are guys that haven't been drafted yet, and especially for being a second-round pick, it might be a bit concerning to some, but I don't think that's a huge deal. Sean Durzi is a great skater, offensive ability. The one thing he could work on is defensive play and positioning and sort of how to play the position defense in a sense. But he's going to the LA Kings, who develop defensemen on the daily. They've done a great job over the years of developing these guys and finding the right people. And I think Durzi learning from a Drew Doughty will benefit him big time. Next, they acquired a 2019 first-round pick, which is pretty good. I mean, it's pretty hard in this league to acquire a first-round pick without giving up much. So now I'm going to discuss in further details why I think it's a good deal for the LA Kings. Muzzin's deal ends in a year and a half, and realistically, with the state of their team, they likely weren't going to re-sign him. So it's about value here, right? The Kings are getting value, getting rid of Muzzin. They're adding assets, and I think that's good for them. I think they need it. They continue to add young pieces to their somewhat thin prospect list. They've had a couple of first-round picks over the years. A few years before that, they haven't. So it'll be interesting to see what young pieces they'll add more, in addition to Durzi, Grundstrom, and the pick. As I said, adding an additional first-round pick is extremely difficult to do in today's NHL. Teams do not want to part with their draft picks at all. So to be able to acquire this first-round pick in this deal is very important. Now, this is actually the first draft that the Kings have had multiple first-round picks since 2008. When they had the second pick, they took Drew Doughty number 2 and Colton Tubert number 13. So, obviously, LA hasn't had a couple of first-round picks in the same year for a long time, so this will be huge for the team to be able to stock the shelves a bit. LA did not have their first-round pick in 2015 and 2016 when they traded in 2015 for the likes of Milan Lucic. In 2016, they traded for Andrej Sekera. Somehow Lucic and Sekera both ended up on Edmonton. Just a little fun fact. I kind of find that funny how they both ended up there. Next, losing Jake Muzzin will increase their odds in the Jack Hughes sweepstakes. I know teams don't like to consider themselves tanking, but when you trade away a guy like Jake Muzzin who plays almost 22 minutes a night, your team will not perform as well because you're losing that defenseman. And I think it's a benefit for the Kings, to be honest, because I think that the higher their odds and the higher chance they can get out of Jack Hughes, a Kako, Kirby Dach, for example, I think is a great benefit for their team. And the LA Kings haven't had a high draft pick in a long time, so I think it's worth it for them to kind of gut it this year and get that really high pick that they can kind of build their franchise around with the retool. Next, with the likely departure of Alec Martinez, I can't see him staying on the roster at 31 years old. I think he's a prime target to move next on LA. I think it's room for some of their young defensemen. LA has a couple of pretty solid young defensemen in their system, such as Mikey Anderson, who got a silver medal with the U.S. World Junior team this year, who lost to Finland in the gold medal game. Thank you, Capo Kako. So glad the U.S. lost. The LA Kings also have Cale Clegg, who they drafted in the second round. A few years ago, Clegg played for Canada at the World Juniors for a few years. He won silver and then gold in Buffalo in 2018. And Marcus Phillips, defenseman, who did play for Team Canada at the World Juniors this past tournament. So the LA Kings do have guys coming on the blue line. So I think that trading away guys like Muzzin will almost benefit these young players because they will come in and be able to kind of make that impact, and they won't get sheltered right away. They'll kind of get thrown out there a little bit, which I think to start, which will be a huge benefit to the Kings. I think it's a really exciting time to be an LA Kings fan. I know it's sad with the performance of the team, but with that high draft pick, you have the chance of getting Jack Hughes. That is massive. So I give the LA Kings a B plus on this trade. Why do I give them a B plus and Toronto an A? I give LA a B plus because yes, they did get the first round pick, but they failed to acquire one of the top prospects on the Leafs. They didn't get a Sandin, they didn't get a Liljegren or even a Trevor Moore, who's had a great impact on the Leafs, even on the fourth line this year. I think had they have gotten a higher end prospect, I think I would have given them an A or an A minus. However, I don't think that the trade warranted them getting an A grade. I think B plus is very fair. So this is my analysis of the Jake Muzzin trade. Thank you all very much for listening to this video. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos. And I want to thank you all for listening to my first ever podcast. This is On the Pond with Adam Steer.